food and holds his horse and makes up songs, including the theme song of the show. And so these are real people, right? These are real names from history, but Disney feels kind of free to take those things and repurpose them how he wants. Instead of Marion falling out a window or jumping out a window to avoid a party, he jumps out of a window after having warned the garrison of Charleston that the British are approaching down the road. Unlike in reality, where Henry Clinton took like 6 weeks from the time he landed on the ships to get to Charleston, in the show, he takes them completely by surprise, and Marion is the only one who knows and goes to warn the American officers at this ball, and nobody wants to listen to him. And so he jumps out the window. So again, there's like echoes of the truth. There's echoes of the historical past, and yet they're doing completely bizarre things in the story. And this is where Marion's association with Tarleton gets solidified, because Tarleton is the principal villain in this show. And I don't have time to talk about Tarleton, but Tarleton also goes through this really interesting transformation through this same period of American mythology, being created and recreated as this villainous figure in American history. And so, of course, Disney's got this hero. He needs a villain. And so he just reaches into the bag and pulls one out. And so Tarleton becomes that principal villain in the story. Like every villain in every good story, Tarleton acts as a foil for Marion. So each of those characteristics that we went through of the American hero, Tarleton represents their exact opposite. And he serves to reflect those qualities back on Marion, because he is in every way Marion's opposite. Not only is he evil and unprincipled, but he's not overly clever. He is respectful of authority rather than contemptuous of authority. All of that. And I would also point out the importance of emphasizing within all this Marion's role as a militia officer rather than as a continental officer, which of course he was both, but by emphasizing his role with the militia and by even downplaying the organization of the brigade, making it look more like a random collection of volunteers than it even was, making it look less organized. They really emphasize that idea of the citizen soldier, which is so important to American identity. And here, just briefly, I want to quote Tony Scotti, who wrote the first of several revisionist books on Tarleton, who says, "Myth by its very nature deals with expectations rather than reality. Americans cling to traditional myths of valor, honor, and decency because they expect their ancestors to have been virtuous and noble human beings." And here I would say all people, not just Americans. But moreover, their motivation for studying someone like Tarleton has been to review what he and his men did to their forefathers. So Tarleton, in exemplifying all those opposite things, serves to create this situation in which the American heroes get to shine and get to be exactly those things that we need to represent them as being. And then I want to skip ahead just one more time to the very recent present and the Patriot, which is kind of the most recent version of this. And this also has an important historical context, which is that the Swamp Fox happens in the 1950s and 1960s in that Cold War atmosphere, in that era that we still consider to be kind of an age of innocence in America before Vietnam, and that Vietnam really transforms Vietnam and the turmoil at home in the 1960s really transform the way we tell this story. And this is something that Slotkin talks about a lot as well with the ideas of the frontier, that this is a major moment in transforming America's Westerns from the John Wayne mode of Western to the Clint Eastwood Western, right? To a new kind of American hero who is, in in some ways the anti-hero, who has a dark past, who is haunted by things that he has done in the past or has had done to him, who lives in a world that is complex, and yet underneath all of that, still has those same principles, and that ends up being the most important thing for him, his way to redeem himself. And so when we're thinking about The Patriot, we should think about it in that post-Vietnam model of films like The Dirty Dozen or Unforgiven or Rambo even, of these kind of dark, troubled anti-heroes. And yet at the core of that is still Marion. Is still, they change his name to Benjamin Martin, and yes, you can argue that he's part Daniel Morgan, he's part Thomas Sumter, he's part whoever else, right? He's obviously a composite character, but at his core is still that Marion character, who exemplifies those American values, just with this extra veneer of darkness and sort of almost reality, dealing with those kinds of things that the Weems version and the Disney version never wanted to deal with. He's deeply flawed, he's motivated by protecting his family, he's also motivated by vengeance, but at the end of the day, he's still more clever than his enemies, he's still, outsmarting them, he's still contemptuous of authority, he is still all those things, and he still reflects that back to us as Americans. The Patriot's Tarleton is also much darker than Disney's Tarleton. And actually, in that case, the Tarleton is more reminiscent of the early 19th century Tarleton, who is, incredibly dark and unbelievably villainous. They sort of resurrect that to serve as the foil to Mel Gibson's Benjamin Martin. So, I'm running short on time. I want to kind of wrap this background, and I just want to bring you back to where we started and remind you that, yes, there is this historical character, Francis Marion, and he did a lot of stuff that's really important, as many of our speakers have continued to remind us yesterday and today, for the United States, for this country. We wouldn't be here without him, and he deserves our thanks for that. Let's also not forget that other character, the Swamp Fox, who is a completely different person, but who has also been transformational and incredibly important to construction of American identity through the intervening 200 years.